The vast arena of Prime Nexus, the heart of the Galactic Federation, was alive with anticipation. Towering structures of alien design stretched toward the artificial sky, their surfaces gleaming under the bright illumination of the hovering drone lights. Every seat was occupied by creatures from across the galaxy, representing hundreds of different species, each waiting to witness the most prestigious event in the known universe, the Tournament of Titans. This was not just a competition. It was a statement of power, a place where the strongest warriors from countless worlds proved their dominance. The air was filled with roars, growls, and alien sounds of excitement as the first round was about to begin. Massive holograms displayed the names of the contenders, and as each warrior's name was announced, their species erupted in support, their voices echoing across the arena. The combatants were nothing short of monstrous. The Drawn, a species of 8-foot-tall, muscle-bound warlords. The Vorik, encased in natural armor thicker than any known metal. And the Tarkin, reptilian creatures whose claws could slice through reinforced steel. It was a gathering of the galaxy's most fearsome fighters. But then, an unexpected name appeared on the screen. James Carter, human. A wave of confusion spread across the arena, followed by laughter. The audience erupted into disbelief. Humans, competing in the Tournament of Titans. It was absurd. The Galactic Federation had long classified humans as a Category 3 species, intelligent but physically unimpressive, a race of thinkers and explorers rather than warriors. Compared to the towering, battle-hardened monsters in the arena, a human seemed out of place, almost laughable. Even the announcer, a robotic AI programmed for neutrality, hesitated for a moment before officially declaring his entry. James, standing alone in the preparation chamber, could hear the reactions even through the thick walls. He expected this. Humans had always been underestimated. It was a pattern written across history, but today that would change. The doors to the arena hissed open, and James stepped forward. He was unarmored, dressed in nothing but a combat uniform, no exosuit, no reinforced plating, just the body of a regular human. The audience gasped, some in amusement, others in confusion. His opponent was already waiting in the center of the arena, a Tarkin gladiator named Corvath, a towering beast with dark green scales, a body rippling with muscle, and 4 thick arms, each ending in claws sharp enough to cut through flesh like paper. The Tarkin turned its red eyes toward James and let out a deep, guttural growl, a sound that had sent lesser creatures fleeing in terror. James, however, remained unfazed. Instead, he rolled his shoulders, loosened his stance, and cracked his knuckles. The match was set. The fight was about to begin. The referee drone hovered above them, its mechanical voice booming across the arena. Begin. Corvath wasted no time. With the speed of a predator, the Tarkin lunged forward, claws slashing in a deadly arc, meant to end the fight in a single blow. The audience barely had time to react before something impossible happened. James moved, not in a panicked retreat like most would expect, but with calculated precision. He dodged. His body shifted just enough for the Tarkin's claws to miss by an inch, and before Corvath could recover, James was already inside his guard. With a single devastating punch to the Tarkin's exposed ribcage, the impact echoed like a gunshot. Corvath staggered back, eyes wide in pain. The crowd went silent. No one had ever seen a human move like that, let alone strike with such force. Corvath roared in frustration, this time attacking with full force. But James was already reading his every move. The Tarkin was strong, but predictable. He relied on raw power, a brute force style that worked against slower, bulkier opponents, but James was neither. Humans, by their very nature, were adaptive, and James had spent years perfecting his combat skills. Every attack from Corvath was dodged by mere millimeters. Every counterstrike from James landed with pinpoint accuracy. His movements were fluid, almost inhuman in their efficiency. The more Corvath fought, the more desperate he became. his attacks turning reckless. That was all James needed. He saw his opening. With one swift motion, James ducked under the Tarkin's final, desperate swing and drove his elbow into the creature's sternum with all the force his body could generate. A sickening crack echoed through the arena. Korvath's body collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, his limbs twitching in shock. He was done. Silence. Absolute silence. The entire arena, which had been filled with laughter and mockery minutes ago, now stood frozen in disbelief. The unthinkable had happened. A human had defeated one of the deadliest warriors in the tournament. The announcer hesitated before finally declaring, "Winner, James Carter." The silence broke into an uproar. Some cheered, others shouted in confusion, and some simply sat in stunned silence. The Galactic Council members, watching from their private chamber above, exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't just a lucky victory. This was something else. Something dangerous. James stood over the fallen Tarkin, his expression calm, unreadable. He had proven his point, but this was only the beginning. The galaxy had no idea what humans were truly capable of. And soon, they would learn. The aftermath of James Carter's victory over the Tarkin warrior sent shockwaves through the entire arena. The moment the announcer declared him the winner, the once boisterous crowd fell into stunned silence. For the first time in the history of the Tournament of Titans, a human had not only competed, but had decisively defeated a warrior from one of the most feared species in the galaxy. The sight of Korvath, a creature nearly twice the size of his opponent, lying motionless on the ground was almost too much to believe. Some in the audience thought it had to be a mistake, that perhaps the human had cheated or that Korvath had made a critical mistake. But those who had watched closely knew the truth. This was not luck. This was skill. James Carter had fought like no one had ever seen before, and now, the galaxy was watching him with new eyes. As the stunned silence turned into whispers and then a rising wave of murmurs, James simply stood there, calm and unmoved, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The referee drone hovered closer, scanning the Tarkin's vitals before confirming that he was still alive but severely injured. Medics rushed onto the field, their long insect-like limbs carrying advanced medical scanners as they lifted the unconscious Tarkin onto a stretcher. The other competitors, warriors from across the galaxy, stood near the edge of the arena, their expressions ranging from confusion to unease. They had come expecting a spectacle, but none had considered the possibility that a human might actually win a fight in the Tournament of Titans. In the Galactic Council's private viewing chamber, the high-ranking officials of the Federation sat in disbelief. Grand Chancellor Vectar, an aged Zornian with blue reptilian skin and 4 piercing yellow eyes, leaned forward, rewinding the footage on his holographic screen. He watched the human's movements carefully. The speed, the precision, the way he dodged attacks with near-perfect timing and delivered strikes with devastating efficiency. He turned to his advisors, his deep voice carrying a weight of concern. "This is not what we expected from a human. Have we underestimated them?" No one had an answer. Humans were known for their intelligence and adaptability, but in terms of physical combat, they had always been considered inferior to the more dominant warlike species of the galaxy. Yet James Carter had just rewritten everything they thought they knew. Meanwhile, in the underground preparation chambers where the warriors waited for their turn, James Carter calmly walked back, ignoring the stares of disbelief and hostility directed at him. A massive drawn warrior, standing over 8 feet tall with muscles like steel cables, stepped forward, blocking James's path. His voice was a deep growl. "That was a fluke, human. You won't last another round." James simply smirked, his sharp eyes meeting the Drawn's unflinching gaze. "We'll see." He walked past him without another word. The Drawn clenched his fists, watching James go. For the first time in the history of the tournament, an opponent was truly unpredictable. The news of James's victory spread beyond the arena, reaching every corner of the Federation-controlled space. Footage of the fight played on holographic screens in space stations, planetary colonies, and warships across the galaxy. On the trading world of Vornax, a group of alien mercenaries gathered around a holoprojector, watching the fight with intense curiosity. One of them, a grizzled warrior with cybernetic enhancements, shook his head. "I've fought humans before. They're not supposed to be this fast. What the hell is going on?" On a distant research station orbiting the ice planet Sci-Fi, a team of scientists paused their work to analyze the footage. One of them, a xenobiologist, frowned. "This is fascinating. Either this human is a freak anomaly, or their species has been hiding their true capabilities all along." Across the galaxy, military strategists, warlords, and bounty hunters began to take notice. The name James Carter was no longer just that of a competitor. It was becoming something much more dangerous. Back in the arena, the tournament continued, but something had changed. The fights that followed lacked the same excitement. Even when massive creatures clashed, sending shockwaves across the battlefield, the audience remained distracted, still murmuring about the humans' victory. The betting markets, which had previously placed James Carter at 1,000-to-1 odds of winning even a single match, were now in chaos. The bookkeepers scrambled to adjust the numbers, while those who had taken the insane risk of betting on the human suddenly found themselves very wealthy. James's next match was announced. This time, the arena was completely silent when his name was displayed. There was no laughter, no mockery. Instead, there was curiosity, caution, and fear. His next opponent was Zarnok the Colossus, a Vorak warlord, a creature covered in thick-plated armor, its hands capable of crushing stone. Many considered Zarnok the strongest competitor in the tournament. If James's first fight had been surprising, his next fight would be the true test of whether he was truly a threat or just a lucky anomaly. As James stood in the waiting chamber, preparing for the next round, he could feel the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes upon him. He had come to this tournament to prove something, but even he hadn't expected this level of attention so quickly. He rolled his shoulders, exhaled, and prepared himself. The real fight was about to begin. And this time, the whole galaxy would be watching. The Galactic Federation had always considered humans to be an unremarkable species. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest, and their homeworld, Earth, was seen as nothing more than a minor planet on the outer edges of the galactic map. Compared to the towering Vorak warriors, the brute strength of the Drawn, or the endurance of the reptilian Tarkans, humans appeared fragile, weak, and biologically inferior. Yet, ever since James Carter had stepped into the Tournament of Titans and shocked the galaxy by defeating warriors twice his size, scientists, military strategists, and xenobiologists had begun to ask the same question. How was this possible? How had a species known for its diplomacy and trade suddenly produced a warrior capable of outmatching elite fighters from across the stars? The answer, it seemed, lay in something much deeper than muscle or size. In the high-tech research laboratories of the Galactic Science Institute, a team of alien scientists gathered around holographic displays, analyzing slow-motion footage of James Carter's fight. The lead researcher, Dr. Vraxel, a four-eyed Xilarian, studied the data with fascination. His assistants, a mix of insectoid and amphibian scientists, stood in silence as they reviewed the numbers. "His speed is unnatural for a creature of his size," one of them muttered, adjusting a scanner. "And his reflexes, they defy standard biology." Dr. Vraxel tapped the screen, zooming in on Carter's muscle movements. "It's not just speed," he said, his voice filled with curiosity. "Look at how he moves. There's no wasted energy. Every motion is precise, calculated. This is not random flailing. This is a refined combat instinct." The analysis continued, revealing more surprises. Unlike most species in the galaxy, human muscle fibers were densely packed with slow twitch and fast twitch fibers, giving them an unusual balance of endurance and explosive power. Other species had either one or the other. The Drawn had brute strength but lacked agility, while the feline-like Kypherians were fast but fragile. Humans, however, had something rare. They were built for both endurance and adaptability. Even more astonishing was the discovery of micro-tearing and rapid regeneration in human muscles. Their muscles actually break down and rebuild stronger with stress, Dr. Vraxel explained. Astonished. This is unheard of in most species. They don't just recover from damage. They evolve through it. As the team dove deeper, they uncovered even more bizarre facts. Humans possessed an unusually efficient cardiovascular system, allowing them to sustain physical exertion far longer than most creatures their size. On most alien worlds, warriors could fight for minutes before fatigue set in. Humans, however, could fight for hours, even days, under the right conditions. Their bodies were built to conserve energy, burning fuel in a way that maximized endurance. But what truly baffled the scientists was something even more terrifying: their nervous system and pain tolerance. On a nearby screen, footage from past human conflicts displayed acts that defied logic. Soldiers dragging themselves through battlefields with shattered limbs. Fighters continuing to attack despite deep wounds that should have incapacitated them. A species that ignored pain, adapted to suffering, and fought even when the odds were hopeless. Dr. Vraxel shook his head. This is madness. His assistant, an amphibian scientist named Silo, swallowed nervously. It's not madness. It's their greatest strength. Unlike most species, which retreated when injured, humans had a unique survival mechanism. Their brains could override pain through sheer willpower. The implications of this discovery sent waves of fear through the scientific community. If humans could continue fighting despite injuries, if their bodies became stronger with stress, if they could outlast almost any opponent through endurance and mental resilience, then what did this mean for the future of warfare? The Federation had always treated humans as a minor species, useful for trade and negotiation. But what if they had unknowingly allowed a sleeping giant to rise? Elsewhere, in a hidden military facility on the planet Vorthal, the Tarkin High Command reviewed the same data with growing concern. The Tarkans, one of the most feared warrior races in the galaxy, had ruled through sheer dominance. Their warlords had crushed countless civilizations. Their soldiers had never known fear. But now, watching the footage of a human defeating their champion, they felt something unfamiliar: uncertainty. General Xorak, a massive Tarkan covered in thick black armor, growled as he watched the recordings. "We underestimated them," he admitted, his voice low. "We thought them weak, but we never truly tested them in war." A younger officer stepped forward hesitantly. "What do we do now?" General Xorak's reptilian eyes narrowed. "We prepare for the possibility that humans are not just another species. We prepare for the possibility that they are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered." Back at the Tournament of Titans, James Carter sat alone in his preparation chamber, wrapping his hands in bandages. He knew that eyes were on him now. Scientists, warriors, leaders, and strategists from across the galaxy were studying him, trying to understand what made him different. But James didn't fight for them. He didn't fight for the Federation, nor did he fight for recognition. He fought because that's what humans had always done. They had fought against nature, against extinction, against impossible odds since the beginning of their existence. Their strength didn't come from power alone. It came from the will to survive, to adapt, and to win. As the next fight was announced, James stood up, rolling his shoulders. The galaxy had begun to understand the truth. Humanity was not the strongest species, but pound for pound, they were the deadliest. And soon, the entire universe would know why. The arena was silent. Billions of beings from across the galaxy watched the massive screens broadcasting the final duel of the Tournament of Titans. The greatest warriors from every species had come and fallen, leaving only two standing: James Carter, the human who had defied all expectations, and Warbringer Cordeth, the undefeated champion of the Tarkan Empire. The battle had already become legendary before it even began. No human had ever reached this stage before. No one believed they could. And yet there he was, standing on the blood-stained battlefield, facing a titan twice his size, a warrior feared across the stars. Kordath stepped forward, his massive reptilian body covered in battle armor, his claws sharp enough to cut through steel. His cold yellow eyes studied James with something close to respect, but mostly amusement. "You have done well, human," Kordath said, his deep voice echoing through the arena. "But this fight will end like all others. You will kneel before the true apex of the galaxy." James smirked, rolling his shoulders. "Funny," he said. "I was just about to say the same thing." The audience erupted into a mix of laughter and cheers, but James knew the truth. This fight was going to be different. Kordath was not like the others. He was faster than the massive Voric brutes, stronger than the agile Typherians, and more experienced than any warrior James had faced before. If there was ever a test of human strength, endurance, and sheer will, this was it. A deep horn sounded, signaling the start of the duel. Kordath moved first, a blur of muscle and speed that should have been impossible for a creature his size. His claws slashed through the air, aimed straight for James' throat. But James wasn't there. He had already sidestepped, ducking under the Tarkan's massive arm and countering with a powerful elbow strike to Kordath's ribs. The impact was solid, but Kordath barely flinched. The audience gasped. No one had ever survived a direct hit from Kordath's tail. But James wasn't just surviving. He was adapting. He knew now that brute force alone wouldn't win this fight. He had to be smarter, faster, and more relentless than ever before. Kordath charged again, his massive frame moving like a storm, every strike aiming to end the fight in a single blow. But James dodged, countered, and struck back with precision, targeting the weak points he had studied. The joints, the nerves, the places where even a Tarkan would feel pain. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. Kordath's attacks were getting slower. For the first time in his career, he was tiring. His breathing became heavier, his movements less precise, and that was when James saw it, his opening. The next time Kordath lunged, James didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped forward, letting the Tarkan's momentum carry him just past his shoulder. In one swift motion, James twisted, driving his fist into the side of Kordath's skull with all the force his body could generate. The impact was like a thunderclap. Kordath staggered, his vision blurred, his legs trembled. The audience held their breath. Then with a final push, James leaped, delivering a spinning kick straight to the Tarkan's jaw. The force sent Kordath crashing onto his back, the ground shaking beneath his weight. Silence filled the arena. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the horn sounded. James Carter had won. The realization hit like a shockwave. The undefeated champion had fallen. The human had won the Tournament of Titans. The galaxy had just witnessed something impossible. The Federation, the Tarkan Empire, every major power in the universe had seen the truth with their own eyes. Humanity was not weak. They were not prey. They were warriors. Kordath groaned, pushing himself up slightly, his vision clearing as he looked at James. Instead of rage or humiliation, there was something else in his eyes. Respect. He gave a slow nod. "You have earned this victory," he admitted, "and the galaxy will never see humans the same way again." As James raised his fist in victory, the realization spread across the cosmos. The awakening had begun. Every empire, every species, every ruler who had once ignored humanity was now watching them with new eyes. They had feared the strong, but they had never feared humans. Until now. The galaxy was not the same anymore. The Tournament of Titans had ended, but its impact was still shaking the foundations of the universe. For centuries, the great empires of the stars had believed in a clear hierarchy. The strongest ruled, the weak submitted, and in that order, humanity was never even considered a contender. But now, one human had stood alone in the arena, against the mightiest warrior of the galaxy and emerged victorious. James Carter's victory over Warbringer Kordath had not just been a personal triumph. It had shattered the balance of power across the cosmos. The Galactic Council, a gathering of the most powerful civilizations, had called for an emergency meeting. The Tarkan Empire, the Zypherian Dominion, the Vorak clans, and countless other species had assembled to discuss what could no longer be ignored: the rise of humanity. Their leaders sat around a massive circular table, holograms of battle footage playing in the background. The fight had been watched by trillions, and no one could deny the truth anymore. Supreme Chancellor Vorkesh of the Typherians, a species known for their intelligence and advanced technology, spoke first. "We have underestimated them," he admitted, his many eyes narrowing. "Humans are no longer an afterthought. They have proven their place among the strongest." Across the table, High Warlord Durketh of the Tarkan Empire, the very leader of Kordath's people, remained silent. His sharp claws tapped against the metallic surface of the table, his yellow eyes unreadable. Finally, he leaned forward. "Strength commands respect," he growled. "The human won. That cannot be denied. But what does this mean for the future?" The room fell into tense silence. The answer was simple, yet terrifying. It meant the balance of power had changed. No longer could the great empires look at humanity as an insignificant species. No longer could they push Earth aside, believing them to be weak, unworthy of consideration. They had proven their strength, and now the galaxy had to adjust. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the victory had sent waves of both celebration and fear. The people of Earth had always known they were strong in their own way, but the rest of the universe had dismissed them, until now. Governments across the planet scrambled to prepare for what came next. Would this newfound recognition bring alliances or enemies? Would the galaxy welcome them, or seek to eliminate a rising threat before it grew too powerful? James Carter, the man responsible for this shift in power, had no desire for politics. He had fought in the tournament not to make a statement, but simply because he had been challenged. Yet, as he stood in the middle of Earth's most secure war room, surrounded by generals, diplomats, and world leaders, he realized that his actions had changed history. "So what now?" he asked, crossing his arms as he watched holographic projections of different galactic factions. A general from the United Earth Defense Force, an older man with years of experience, sighed. Now we prepare," he said grimly. "The galaxy sees us differently, but that doesn't mean they see us as friends. Some will want alliances, others—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. There would be those who saw humanity's strength as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The first test came sooner than expected. A fleet from the Vorak clans arrived in Earth's orbit without warning. The Vorak were a warrior race, massive creatures covered in thick armor-like skin. Their warships were designed for invasion, their species known for conquering and enslaving weaker civilizations. A single transmission came through. "We challenge humanity. Prove your strength in battle, or submit to the true rulers of the galaxy." The message was clear. This was a test, a challenge to see if humans were truly as strong as their champion had shown in the tournament. And humanity had only one way to respond. They would not back down. The Earth Defense Fleet launched into action, warships rising from the planet's surface, forming a blockade around their homeworld. But this was not just about protecting Earth. This was the moment the galaxy would decide whether humanity was a passing anomaly or a true force to be reckoned with. The battle was brutal. The Vorak expected an easy victory, believing that humans were strong in one-on-one combat, but weak in large-scale warfare. They were wrong. Human strategy, adaptability, and sheer willpower turned the tides of battle. Earth's warships were smaller, but faster. Their weapons were not the most powerful, but their tactics were unpredictable. Where other species fought with brute strength or rigid formations, humans fought with ingenuity. They adapted in real time, turning the Vorak's overwhelming force against them. Within hours, The Vorik fleet was in full retreat. For the first time in their history, they had been outmatched not by sheer power, but by something far more dangerous: human intelligence. The galaxy took notice. Humanity was no longer just a rising power. They were a force that could not be ignored. Some species rushed to establish diplomatic relations, eager to secure alliances before humanity grew too strong. Others watched in silence, recalculating their strategies, wondering if it was safer to befriend the humans or prepare for an inevitable war. And so, the new galactic order began. The empires that had once ruled uncontested now faced an unpredictable variable. The humans had entered the game, and they were playing by their own rules. The galaxy had always belonged to the strongest. Now, it was time to see if humanity had what it took to claim their place among the stars.